I've accidentally called this World War Z in this introduction like 3 times already. Good grief. So I just got back from seeing The Lost City of Z. Maybe I should just call it Zed like Fawcett and basically everybody else in this film because, you know, British. Which is the latest feature from writer-director James Gray. It's the dramatization of Lieutenant Colonel Percy Fawcett, the famed British explorer I'd never heard of, and his quest to find a lost city in the Amazon throughout the early 20th century until what would be his final expedition in 1925 when he disappeared under mysterious circumstances. And apparently, he was actually pretty close. From a brief little internet search and from the ending title card of this film, it turns out that where Fawcett proposed this lost city of Zed was in the Amazon later turned out to be a great archaeological find, and he was actually apparently really close when he disappeared. That's a cruel irony. As I said, this film is written and directed by James Gray, a director I actually kind of do and don't know. Back in 2013, he wrote and directed a film entitled The Immigrant, and I remember seeing it make all of the festival and kind of like critics lists rounds, but I never really got around to seeing it. And when I went and looked up his CV, I'm really surprised I both hadn't heard of him, kinda, and hadn't seen any of his movies. All of his movies look like something that I would pretty easily throw up on Netflix and just start watching, and not only that, he's a director who's been nominated for the Palme d'Or, which is the Golden Palm Award, at Cannes Festival 4 times. How have I never heard of this guy? And just, well, really, from a place of total ignorance, I'd wonder if Lost City of Zed might be his most ambitious. As I said, this is a biopic. It's telling the story of Lieutenant Colonel Percy Fawcett and his initial quest to go into the Amazon in order to do some map making in the early 1900s because he needs to find the source of the Rio Verde, which I believe means green river. On the way, he's hooked up with his aide-de-camp, a man named Henry Costin, played by Robert Pattinson, who I didn't recognize at first, and who actually is quite good in this movie. And they eventually go into a lot of uncharted Amazonia. It is during this expedition that Fawcett discovers something which leads him to believe there was likely some kind of ancient civilization in the Amazon that was actually pretty advanced, or at the very least, stood on par with something like, say, ancient Egypt, ancient Rome, and ancient China and India. He names this potential city Zed and is obsessed from that point forth of locating the city and proving that he's right. As he says, he believes it'll write a new chapter in human history. Ultimately, this is a film that's not really about plot, it's about one character's obsession. Or at least it should be. The film really has 2 things it needs to show us about Percy. First, it needs to show us what kind of a man he is, and then it needs to show us his obsession. It does pretty well in the opening of this, to be honest. Our opening scene sets up Percy really well. In fact, without any dialogue, it's just through his actions. He is a man of action. He's a man who will easily go off the beaten path, who's willing to take some risks, who will fight to get what he wants, and who is ultimately a man who's clearly kind of disquieted. He doesn't really have a place, he doesn't feel happy where he is, and he needs something. He's searching for something. But that something is sort of amorphous, and I don't even think he knows what it is at the beginning. After the first trip into the Amazon, we at this point need to see Percy's obsession with Zed. Why he has this compulsion to find the city that he makes multiple expeditions back to the Amazon. And this is where I think the film doesn't quite stand up. I compare it to something like the 1984 film Amadeus, directed by Milos Forman, which told the story of the rivalry between the composers Mozart and Salieri and their obsession with music. In fact, music really becomes the third character of that film, and the way that Mozart and Salieri act with regards to music, the way they describe it, how they try to talk about what it is and what it means to them and what it ultimately drives the both of them to do, we understand their obsession. We understand how this obsession has then turned to madness. And that's because music is so prominent in that film. And here's where I think Zed actually could have done a little better. We don't spend a lot of time in the Amazon. The film is so obsessed with giving you so many details of Percy's life, and to be fair, he had a pretty varied life. He did a lot of different things besides just wandering around the Amazon. But we actually see too much of that. We don't get enough time spent in the Amazon. To play devil's advocate for a moment, maybe Gray showed us all there is to know about Percy Fawcett's time in the Amazon, and maybe he didn't want to go too far into embellishing it. I honestly don't know. but all I do know is I thought we were going to spend a lot more time in the Amazon. From a storytelling standpoint, I think it was really important that we should have spent more time in the Amazon because the audience needs to understand what it is about the Amazon and what it is about the idea of the lost city of Zed that obsesses Percy Fawcett. Because if we don't quite understand, the obsession doesn't really come through. And in fact, I don't really think the film gives Fawcett the time in the Amazon to show us why he is so hell-bent on finding this city. Is it just because he wants to prove that ultimately the native South Americans could have a very sophisticated culture outside of what the white, Western world knows? Well, there's actually a scene that kind of already shows that. So, if that's it, he accomplished it without finding Zed. Is it just to write a new chapter in human history? Well, they tell us about the Americans discovering Machu Picchu and plenty of other expeditions in South America. So in a way, that's been accomplished too. What is it about Zed that Percy wants? The film never really lets Percy vocalize this, or at least watch him fall in love with the jungle. We get some time there, and what time is spent there is really good, but we needed more time there. Especially, I think, in the final expedition, which really clocks in at less than half an hour. The final expedition in which Percy and his eldest son Jack actually both went, and it was just the two of them for a while, is breezed through in the finale of the film. And I kinda wish that had actually been the focal point of the film. In a way, the film could have potentially done something that played with time, because we could have been living Percy's fever dream in the jungle. We could have seen him maybe go a little off his rocker and become obsessed that everyone around him maybe doesn't quite get it. The film tries. In fact, there's a great line by Henry Costin as Percy is preparing to go out on this final expedition that's in the trailers where he says,
"You've come to doubt its existence."
No. I only doubt that Zed provide all the answers you seek from it.
Okay, but again, what were those answers? What were even the questions? The film doesn't ever really give you a sense of that, and that's where I finished the film and I was ultimately left feeling kind of unsatisfied. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't unhappy with the film, and I don't think it's a bad film. In fact, I think it's really quite beautifully shot and beautifully executed for what it is. And while there's certainly a meditative quality to the film, I think it's ultimately to the film's detriment because it doesn't really know what to do. Because instead of focusing on the man and his obsession and what could be construed as maybe madness to others, we spend time kind of learning about the rest of his life. And while that's certainly interesting, it kind of makes for a slightly unfocused feeling film. But then again, maybe that's the point. Maybe we're not meant to understand Fawcett's obsession with Amazonia and with this city of Zed. After all, each man's madness is wholly his own. Like I said, it's a beautiful film. I know it's sitting with 88% on Rotten Tomatoes, so a lot of people like it, and I certainly thought it was fine, but this is not going to be a film for everyone. It's beautiful, it's quiet, it's restrained, maybe ultimately a little too restrained. Maybe I'll just go watch Amadeus. Thanks for watching me ramble today. If you'd like to see more from me, go ahead and click that button with my face on it. It'll take you to my channel, where I ramble about a whole lot of different things. Got some thoughts of your own? Go ahead and leave them down in the comments. And make sure that if you want to see more ramblings from me, you click that little subscribe button. That's it for me today, you guys, so until next time, cheers.